Nia adjusted her ID badge as she stepped into the lobby of DTX Engineering. The marble floors gleamed like they always had. The same receptionist greeted her with a tight, polite smile. Same smell of burnt coffee and overworked air vents. It was supposed to be just another Monday, just another all-hands meeting. Except this time, something was off. People avoided eye contact. Whispers halted when she passed. Her name, once spoken with admiration, now hung in the silence, like something inconvenient. She took the elevator up, to the 17th floor. The executive suite. The place she had helped build line by line of code. Blueprint by blueprint. 12 years. For patents, millions in secured contracts. She entered the glass-walled conference room, expecting the usual, progress updates. Strategy talk, maybe a passive-aggressive comment about project timelines. Instead, it was just her father. Walter Thorne, CEO, and, technically, still her boss. He sat at the head of the table, fingers laced, eyes unreadable. No meeting, she asked. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit down, Nia. She did, slowly. His tone was neutral, too neutral. We've been reviewing the company's long-term costs. She blinked. Okay, and we've decided it's time for a restructuring. Effective today. She stared. What are you saying? I'm saying your position is being dissolved. She laughed once. Dissolved. I run engineering. There's no engineering without me. His face didn't move. You're a significant cost, Nia. We have to be practical. Practical. Her voice cracked. Is that what we're calling it? Walter stood, sliding a small envelope toward her across the table. There's a severance package. We've extended your health coverage through the quarter. She didn't touch it. You're firing me. He flinched, but said nothing. You're firing your daughter. Silence. You could have at least let Mom do it, she snapped. She's better at smiling while stabbing people in the back. Still nothing. Nia stood slowly. No one else even had the guts to show up. Just you, sitting here with your corporate mask on, like I didn't give everything to this company. Walter exhaled. You're too expensive, Nia. That's all there is to it. She stared at him, stunned. No thank you. No recognition. 12 years, and I'm reduced to a number. His eyes lowered. Don't make this harder than it already is. Harder for who? Outside, the office was too quiet. No one met her eyes as she stepped out. Even her assistant, Jordan, kept typing, pretending not to see. The only sound was her heels tapping against the tile, her exit music in a space she once called hers. She took the elevator down alone. Outside, the wind hit different. Sharper. The city buzzed, indifferent. The DTX logo glinted behind her in the glass. A monument to something she'd helped build and, now been erased from. She pulled out her phone and opened her Notes app. 12 years. No warning. Too expensive. She typed, legacy doesn't protect you. Not when you look like me. She didn't know what to do next, but she knew she couldn't go home yet. She turned away from the building and walked. Through narration. We learn of Nia's sacrifices, how she built the firm's core engineering division, worked late, broke barriers. She recalls past boardroom moments, being talked over, asked to smile more, praised only when projects succeeded. Now, it all feels like a lie. Characters introduced, flashbacks to younger Nia, indirect references to board members' emotion, grief masked as professionalism, theme focus, microaggressions, the erosion of self-worth. Nia walked until her feet ached. She didn't remember getting on the train, didn't recall tapping her Metro card or climbing the stairs to her apartment. Her mind was too full, her body on autopilot. The envelope from her father still sat unopened in her bag. She dropped it on the kitchen table and collapsed onto the couch. Suit jacket still on. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than usual. The walls were listening, waiting. Her phone vibrated with a calendar. Alert, 11 a.m. leadership sync with ops team. She stared at it. Cancelled, not postponed, not rescheduled, just ... erased. 12 years. 12 years of being the first one in and the last one out. Of walking into boardrooms full of men who shook her hand without looking her in the eye. Of leading million-dollar projects and hearing, "You've really matured in how you speak." 12 years of rehearsing her tone. Smiling just enough. Not too much. She remembered her first month. One of the VPs had patted her shoulder and said, "You're surprisingly technical for a black woman." She had smiled, jaw clenched, and kept walking. That had been the moment she learned what professionalism really meant. You absorb the insult. You don't react. You keep earning your place. Every time. She opened her laptop, logged into the DTX intranet out of habit. Her access was already revoked, even her internal profile, her photo, her bio, her name was gone, no trace. Like she'd never been there. She went to her bookshelf and pulled out the old engineering journal she'd kept in her 20s. When her days were full of dreams and sharp pencils and ambition she hadn't yet had, kicked out of her, she flipped through sketches, handwritten equations. A list of goals she once believed in. At the top of the first page, a line was written in all caps. Make them see me. She stared at it for a long time. Back then, it was a promise. Now it felt like a wound. Her phone buzzed again. Texts from Kayla, her friend in HR. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. You deserve better. You built half that damn company. Nia didn't reply. Because none of it changed what was true. She had given everything, and they'd still decided she didn't belong. Not really, not ever. She walked into the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and looked into the mirror. Too expensive, she whispered. For who? She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just stared because this wasn't grief. It was awakening. Asterisk. Nia meets with an old friend who works in HR and discreetly reveals the real reason behind her dismissal. The board believes she's not a culture fit and has become too visible. It's not about money, it's about control. About race. About resentment. Characters introduced. Kayla, HR friend. Emotion, numbness turning to anger. Theme focus. Professional gaslighting. Coded language of exclusion. The cafe was mostly empty, except for the hum of espresso machines and the occasional clink of a spoon against porcelain. Nia sat in the corner booth, fingers wrapped around a lukewarm mug. Her blazer still smelled faintly of the DTX boardroom cold leather and recycled air. She hadn't changed. She hadn't slept. Kayla arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses still on, eyes darting. Sorry, she whispered, sliding into the booth. Had to be sure no one saw me? Nia offered a tired smile. Appreciate you being here. Kayla leaned in, voice low. I don't have long, but you deserve the truth. Nia nodded. Let me guess. It wasn't really about salary. Kayla shook her head, not even close. She pulled a folded paper from her bag, an internal summary of the last board meeting. No logos, no signatures, just words. Nia skimmed it. One phrase jumped off the page. Concerns about visibility, tone, and long-term cultural alignment. She looked up. Visibility. Kayla's jaw tightened. They meant that article last quarter. The one where you were profiled as a rising star in Black women in tech. The exec team didn't like that it didn't mention the company by name. They thought I was taking too much credit, Nia said flatly. They thought you were becoming bigger than the brand. And tone. Asterisk. Kayla sighed. That meeting you led in January, you questioned the COO's numbers. You were, direct. I was accurate? They read it as aggressive. Nia scoffed. Of course they did. Kayla looked away. They started floating your exit strategy back in March. The final push came last week. One board member actually said, she's great on paper, but not a fit for the next phase. Nia sat back, breath caught in her throat. I built the damn paper. Kayla touched her hand gently. They'll replace you with someone collaborative. You know what that means. Someone who'll smile and stay quiet. Kayla didn't argue. Nia stared out the window, heart cold. She remembered being told to be patient when she asked about a VP seat, being asked to rethink her look before a client pitch, being told she was intimidating when she presented with confidence. They never said race out loud. They didn't have to. Kayla stood to leave. I wish I could have done more. You did, Nia said, folding the paper and slipping it into her bag, as Kayla walked away. Nia stayed seated. She no longer felt erased. She felt exposed and suddenly, seen too clearly. Not for who she was, but for who they feared she might become. Asterisk. Nia receives a series of missed calls from her father's assistant, Dan, then from her father himself. A deal she built years ago is falling apart. He needs her expertise. Suddenly, she's indispensable again. But the damage is done. Characters introduced. Walter, father. Voice only. Emotion. Bittersweet vindication. Theme focus. Tokenism. Conditional value of Black professionals. Voicemail came just after midnight. Nia saw the name flash on her screen, DTX front desk, and let it go to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. And again. 3 missed calls. She tapped play. "Hi, Ms. Thorne. This is Ashley at the front desk. Your father asked me to reach you directly. He said it's urgent. Something about the Falcon Systems contract. Please call back." Falcon Systems. Nia blinked. Suddenly wide awake, she sat up on her couch and grabbed her laptop. The Falcon account had been hers from the start 6 years ago. A defense tech giant. Multi-tier system architecture. Her fingerprints were on every line of code, every deployment, every operational workflow. She'd built the deal, cultivated the trust, handled their volatile CTO with a patience no one else had, and now they were calling her back. Interesting. 10 minutes later, her phone rang again. This time, it was him, Walter. She let it ring until the last second before answering. "Nia," he said. "Listen, I know it's late, but we have a situation." She didn't speak. The Falcon team flagged a data sync error on the live environment. No one knows the custom logic. You wrote the integrations. Still, she said nothing. "We need your help." Her tone was cold. "You fired me, remember? I didn't want to, but you did." He exhaled. "Look, this isn't about that, it's about the company. We could lose the account." She leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "You didn't think I was a fit for the next phase. That wasn't me. It was the board. But you let it happen." He hesitated. "You know how this works." "Yeah," she said, voice hard. "I do." She stood, walking toward the window, city lights flickering in the glass. "You needed me to be invisible when it served your comfort. Now that you're bleeding, you suddenly remember who built your foundation. Nia, please, you didn't even say thank you." "I'm saying it now, it's too late." She hung up. No apology could erase 12 years. No desperate midnight call could rewrite what had been stripped from her, not just her title, but her dignity. She stood there in the dark, heart pounding. A strange mix of hurt and power rising in her chest. They had dismissed her. Now they needed her. That wasn't validation, it was proof. Her phone buzzed again. She turned it face down. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Nia confronts her father in a tense, private meeting. She refuses to come back. He pleads, blames the board, says it wasn't his decision alone. She asks one question. "Would this have happened if I looked like you?" He can't answer. Characters introduced. Walter in person emotion, controlled fury theme focus, reclaiming voice, generational silence around race. Nia didn't plan on going to the office, but something about the way he said, "We need your help," wouldn't let her sleep. The next morning, she put on her sharpest black suit, tied her curls back into a low bun, and walked through the same glass doors that had closed behind her days before. Reception froze. Ashley stammered. He's in the executive suite. He's expecting you." Nia nodded once. No smile. The elevator ride was quiet, familiar, but this time, she didn't feel like she belonged. She felt like a witness walking back into a crime scene. Walter stood when she entered the room. "Nia," he started, voice uncertain. "Let's get this over with," she said. Arms crossed. He gestured to the seat across from him. She didn't sit. "Falcon is threatening to pull the contract," he said. "They want assurance the systems won't collapse." "Then assure them, you're the only one who knows the legacy code." "And whose fault is that?" she snapped. "You fired me before I could transfer it. I didn't have a choice." She laughed, cold. "You're the CEO. The board. Would this have happened," she cut in, "if I looked like you?" He froze. She took a step closer. "Would I be considered too expensive if I were your white male protege? Or would I be called essential, irreplaceable, visionary?" "Nia, it's not about that." "Then what is it about?" "My tone, my confidence. The fact that I take up space you thought I'd shrink inside of." Walter looked down. "Let me guess, you were becoming difficult to manage. That's what they say when black women stop being quiet and start being excellent." He rubbed his temples. "I never wanted it to end like this, but you let it." Silence filled the room like smoke. She paced once, then stopped. "You didn't just fire your daughter, Dad. You fired the only reason this company survived the last 5 years." He looked up, eyes tired. "So what now? You're just gone." She stared at him. "I'm not your fix. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your daughter when it's convenient." He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. "No more. You can tell Falcon the truth. That you let politics cost you your best engineer." She turned and walked toward the door. Nia called out. She paused, hand on the handle. He whispered, "I'm sorry." She didn't turn around. "You should be." Then she left, this time not as someone cast out, but as someone walking out by choice. Back outside, the wind was sharp again, but it didn't bite this time, it cleared the air. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Nia reflects on her youth, how she was raised to be twice as good. Never complain, never confront. She visits her childhood room and finds journals she wrote as an intern. She reads a line aloud. "Be quiet. They're watching." Characters introduced. Younger Nia through flashbacks, emotion, reflection, heartbreak, theme, focus, internalized, survival tactics, psychological toll of racial performance. Nia took the long way home. Instead of heading straight to her apartment, she drove to the house she grew up in. Her mother wasn't home, probably still on a board call or at the yoga studio, pretending things were fine. The key still worked. The house smelled like rosemary and control. She climbed the stairs quietly, as if the walls still remembered her footsteps. Her old room hadn't changed much, same bookshelves, same blue duvet, same pencil marks on the closet door where her father used to measure her height. She walked to the far corner, crouched down, and pulled out the shoebox under the bed. Inside were stacks of old notebooks, journals, sketches, crumpled sticky notes with system ideas, scribbled dreams. She flipped through the pages. Age 16, MIT, not Stanford. More practical. Age 19, smile more during meetings. They don't like when you sound sharp. Age 23, don't be angry, even when you're right. Let them think they're the ones solving it. Page after page, reminders of who she had to be to survive, who she had been trained to be. She found one entry written in thick black ink, bold across the center of the page. "Be quiet. They're watching." She stared at it for a long time. That sentence had been her compass, her armor, her cage. Asterisk, asterisk, her phone buzzed beside her. A notification from LinkedIn. DTX Engineering welcomes new VP of Engineering, Daniel R. Hughes. She didn't click the profile. She didn't need to. Daniel, the junior PM with 4 years experience, white friendly, known for borrowing her language in meetings and getting praised for his clarity. So that was the plan. Not to replace her with better but with safer. Nia stood at her old window, looking out at the same street she once biked down, heart full of dreams. Back then, success had felt like a promise. If she worked hard enough, proved herself enough, they'd have to see her now. She knew better. Black excellence didn't guarantee protection, it only guaranteed visibility. And when she became too visible, too confident, too capable, too unwilling to shrink, they erased her. Not because she failed, but because she stopped pretending she could fail at any moment. She closed the journal gently and slipped it into her bag, not as a keepsake, but as a record of everything she would no longer carry in silence. A board meeting goes sideways without NIA. A major client walks. Emails leak. Someone leaks a memo showing the board debated firing her months ago, citing diversity, optics, fatigue. The media begins to take notice. Characters introduced. Board members, through memo. Unnamed whistleblower, emotion. Cold satisfaction, theme, focus. Systemic racism in corporate structures. Performative diversitania was in the middle of making tea when her phone lit up again. A message from Kayla. "You need to see this. Now." Attached. A screenshot of an internal DTX memo marked confidential board strategy meeting. Q1. The subject line made her throat tighten. Agenda item 4. Succession planning and culture strategy. Engineering division. She opened the document, scrolling past budget charts and marketing initiatives, until she saw her own name. Concerns have been raised over Ms. Thorne's public visibility and her increasing detachment from company messaging. Her continued elevation in external platforms may inadvertently shift the narrative away from DTX's team-first image. Board recommendation. Begin a quiet transition plan. Her dismissal should appear financial. Messaging must remain neutral. Avoid direct confrontation. Nia sat down slowly, mug untouched. It wasn't her performance, it wasn't her salary, it wasn't her salary, it was her presence. By noon, the leak had hit the tech blog circuit. A whistleblower, anonymous, likely internal, had sent the memo to Equity Matters, a watchdog site known for calling out corporate hypocrisy. The article headline was blunt: DTX fired black engineer for being too visible. Internal memo shows. The subheading, board feared her rise, was overshadowing the brand. Now they're losing the trust she built. Within hours, Nia's inbox filled. Former colleagues, journalists, strangers, some offering support, others asking for comment. Dee said nothing. But silence was louder now. Later that day, another alert buzzed. Falcon Systems terminates multi-year contract with DTX Engineering. Reason: loss of leadership continuity and trust. She stared at the screen. The client she had secured. Grown, stabilized, gone, because she was gone. Because they had gambled that anyone could replace her. Kayla texted again. They held a crisis meeting. PRs scrambling. Someone even floated offering you your job back. Nia didn't reply. She didn't need to. Because this wasn't vindication, it was confirmation. Confirmation that the same system that erased her now bled without her. She sat at her desk and opened her laptop. Drafted a short post for LinkedIn. 12 years ago, I walked into a company with dreams of building something that lasted. I helped design systems, close deals, and shape a team that delivered excellence. But when I became too visible, too vocal, too confident, my seat was pulled out from under me. Quietly, deliberately. I was never just your diversity hire. I was your foundation. You fired your foundation. She hit post. No hashtags. No anger. Just the truth. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Walter visits Nia at her apartment. He tries to explain. Tries to apologize. She listens. Then says, "You fired your daughter to protect the comfort of white men in a room." He leaves, crying. She does not. Characters revisited. Walter, in-person emotion. Emotional power shift theme focus. Moral accountability. Boundaries, between justice and forgiveness. Nia had just finished responding to her 10th interview request when the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. She looked through the peephole and paused. Walter standing in a charcoal coat, hands buried in his pockets, eyes heavy. She didn't open the door right away. Instead, she leaned her forehead against it, letting the cold of the wood ground her breath. Then she turned the knob. He looked older than he had the last time she saw him. Not because of time, but because of truth, because of loss. "Hi," he said. She stepped aside, silently. He entered slowly, scanning the apartment like it was unfamiliar terrain. "I saw the memo leak," he said. "The news, everything." She folded her arms. "Didn't think I'd respond." He sat down on the edge of her couch, hands clasped between his knees. "I didn't come to defend myself." She raised an eyebrow. "I came because I failed you." She didn't speak. "I let them convince me that protecting the company meant sacrificing you." She laughed short, sharp. "They didn't convince you. They just gave you permission to do what you already decided." He looked up, face flushed. "That's not true." She stepped closer. "You didn't speak up when they called me a risk. You didn't push back when they reduced me to a cost. You watched them fire me, and you let it happen. And you never once said my name in that room like it mattered." He blinked hard. "You fired your daughter to protect the comfort of white men in a room." He shook his head, eyes glassy. "It wasn't about race. It's always about race when we're the ones who have to stay quiet, stay grateful, stay small." Silence stretched across the room like glass, thin and dangerous. "I was never just your employee, Dad," she said. "I was your mirror. And you didn't like what you saw when I stopped asking for your permission to shine." Walter's voice broke. "I didn't know how to handle it. You got so big, and I got scared." She cut in. He nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," she said. He stood slowly, walked toward the door, pausing one last time. "You deserved better. From the company, from me." Nia didn't respond. He left quietly. She stood in the stillness for a long time, and for the first time since that boardroom meeting, she didn't feel small. She felt seen by herself. And that was enough. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk in a viral LinkedIn post. Nia shares her story not with bitterness, but clarity. She lists her work, her wins, her worth. She writes, "I wasn't your diversity hire. I was your foundation. And you fired your foundation." Characters introduced. Online audience. Former colleagues via digital interactions, emotion, empowerment theme focus, speaking truth to power. Reclaiming narrative. The next morning, sunlight spilled across Nia's apartment in slanted gold. She sat at her desk, fresh coffee beside her. The city below still waking up. Her inbox was a flood. Media inquiries, messages from former colleagues. A dozen tags and think pieces quoting her last post, but something in her still felt unfinished, so she opened LinkedIn again. She clicked write a new post, and this time, she didn't flinch. 12 years ago, I walked into DTX Engineering with a laptop, a worn-out portfolio, and a head full of ideas. I was told I was impressive for someone like me. I was told to speak softer, to learn the room, to be more grateful. And still, I delivered. I led engineering through 3 system overhauls, 4 record-breaking quarters, and secured the contract that kept the company alive during a recession. She paused, fingers hovering over the keys, then kept going. I was promoted when it looked good, pushed aside when I stood tall, and when I no longer fit the narrative, I was labeled too expensive, too visible, too much. I wasn't your diversity hire. I was your foundation, and you fired your foundation. She added a final line. For every black woman who's been told she should be grateful to be in the room, build your own room. Better yet, own the building. She clicked post. Within an hour, the post had gone viral. Comments flooded in. This hit me in my chest. This story is mine too. Thank you for saying what so many of us couldn't. Former interns messaged her with gratitude. Young engineers reached out asking for advice. Even executives from rival firms slid into her inbox offering opportunities. But more than that, people were listening. Not to her resume, to her voice. Later that day, she scrolled through her feed and saw something that made her pause. A former colleague had reshared her post with the caption, "I always knew Nia was more than they allowed her to be." She closed her laptop. More than they allowed, that was the part that stayed with her? Because she had spent years contorting herself to fit inside a space never designed for her to grow. Now, for the first time, she wasn't asking permission. She was defining herself out loud. The sun had risen fully now. She stepped out onto her balcony, breathed deep, and felt something she hadn't in weeks. Not peace exactly, but power. And that was a beginning. Nia starts consulting, quietly, steadily, on her own terms. She mentors young black women in STEM, holds a seminar titled Too Expensive, The Cost of Being Black and Brilliant. She doesn't need the firm. They needed her. Characters introduced. Young men, new beginning, emotion, hope, healing theme, focus, empowerment through community. Legacy redefined. 3 months later, Nia sat in a rented co-working loft, watching the sunlight hit a whiteboard still smeared with equations and sticky notes. The space was small, just her, and a folding table for now, but it was hers. No boardroom votes. No agendas written without her name. No one asking her to shrink. She called it Thornworks, a nod to her past, reclaimed in her own voice. Her first contract was modest, a startup seeking systems redesign. She led the overhaul with precision and grace, the same way she always had, but now there were no politics around her brilliance. Word spread quickly. By her 3rd month, clients sought her out not just for her knowledge but for her presence, her leadership, her clarity. On a quiet Thursday afternoon, she hosted a mentorship circle, 6 young black women in tech, each with their own story. She served tea, asked questions, let silence sit comfortably where it needed to. One of them, Simone, barely said, "They keep telling me I'm lucky to be there." Nia smiled gently. "You're not lucky, you're earned." Another girl chimed in. "They said I was aggressive in a team meeting. All I did was speak." "I know," Nia said. "So do I." She pulled out a marker and wrote on the board, "Too Expensive, The Cost of Being Black and Brilliant." "That's the title of the seminar I'm hosting next month," she explained. "I want to unpack what happens when our excellence threatens comfort and how to stop apologizing for our power." The room went still. Then they clapped, not politely, not performatively, with relief, with recognition, with hope. After they left, Nia sat alone, her laptop open, journal beside her. She flipped to the page where she once wrote, "Be quiet, they're watching." And underneath it, in fresh ink, she added, "Let them watch. You've got work to do." She looked out the window. The city glowing in the early evening. She was no longer building for their approval. She was building for the ones who would come next, and for the first time in a long time, she knew she hadn't been erased. She had simply begun again. Late one evening, Nia receives an email from a junior engineer she mentored years ago. The subject line reads, "Because of you." She smiles, closes her laptop, and breathes deeply for the first time in months. Characters introduced: unnamed mentee, emotion, gentle closure, theme, focus, quiet legacy. The ripple effect of standing up the night was quiet. Her workspace dimly lit by the warm glow of a desk lamp. Nia leaned back in her chair, a half-empty mug of tea beside her. Unread notes from tomorrow's client still open. She wasn't rushing. Not anymore. For once, her success didn't feel like a race. She reached to close her laptop when the notification blinked across the screen. Subject, because of youth sender's name, made her Postasha R. A junior engineer she'd mentored 3 years ago during a summer internship. They'd lost touch after the program ended. Curious, Nia clicked. Hi Nia, I know it's been a long time, but I saw your post. I've been following quietly, learning from how you carried yourself, how you stood your ground. I almost left tech last year. I didn't feel seen. Then I remembered the way you never apologized for taking up space. Because of you, I stayed. Because of you, I just got promoted to lead engineer. I wanted you to know, you made more than a difference, you made a path. Thank you. Nia stared at the message, eyes soft, no applause, no headlines. Just truth. She closed the laptop slowly, laid her hand over it like a prayer, and exhaled deeply peacefully. Not everything broken needed to be rebuilt, some things just needed to be passed on.